Hello and welcome to tutorial number 5 in our Beginner Max MSP series. So in this video we're going to cover help and reference documentation for every object, and then a couple objects. We're going to cover the button object, toggle, comment, number, flownum, send, and receive. So let's get started. So first off, help and reference documentation. Every single object in the Max MSP program comes with a help file and a reference file. So while your patcher is unlocked, if you hold the Option key on your keyboard and then press on a object, you'll see that it opens this .max help file. The max help file is very helpful. It tells you what the object does, and it gives a description of it, of what it does, and then it has it in action. So you see this is a random 40, and then click to get a random number, and it outputs random numbers. And then set range via right inlet. You could change the range over here. So we can make it in the hundreds, things like that. So you get to see it in action. And if you'll notice, this help file is actually a max patcher itself. So what you can do is you can unlock this patch, and you can actually just copy, Command-C, Command-V, and just copy and paste things from the help file into your patch. So this is a very useful tip because you don't have to create things from scratch. You can just go into the help files and pick and choose things instead of typing it all out. And so like for objects like the jit.qt grab, if you go to the help file, you'll see that they have all these different things. So if you unlock the patch, and you can hold shift and you can click around and select things you want to bring into your patch. It's very useful. That wasn't a very good grab though. But yeah, so the help file, you get to pull things into your patch. It's very nice. One thing you want to make sure though is that you don't write over your help patch, because say you cut and then paste it, when you go to close, it'll ask you if you want to save it, and you do not want to save it because otherwise you will lose it when you refer to it later. So make sure you don't overwrite your help files, although I'm sure you could download them online if you do that. So this is the help file. And then we have the reference file. So if you click this question mark up here, you have open reference. Reference is text. It's not a max patch like the help file, and it's more in depth. So you'll see that you get this document here that talks all about the random object. And at the top of every reference, you can open the help patcher up here. So I could click that and it will open this. So if I had this closed, if I was opening the reference file, I could click that and it would open the help file. So on the reference page, we have description, says what the object does. Output, what is coming out of the outlet of this object. So int, that means integer. This object is outputting integers. And what is an integer? We will cover that very soon. So it gives a description of what the output is. Arguments, so what do you type after the object name here? Messages, what are some of the messages you could send into it in order to get a response from it? So for example, remember we sent the bang message into the inlet of the random object, and it outputs the numbers. So you see right here, message, bang, in left inlet, sends out randomly generated number between 0 and 1 less. And then you have the maximum range, inlet, an integer on the right side, and things like that. Common box attributes. So these are the attributes that are available in the object inspector that are common amongst all of them, essentially. And then also at the bottom you have the C also. So random generates a random number. It's an object that generates a random number. These are other objects that also do things that are similar to the random object. Decide chooses randomly between 1 and 0. Drunk outputs random numbers within a step range, and then earn generates random numbers without duplicates. And then at the bottom here, you'll see that it mentions a tutorial that is in the Max Help area that talks about randomness. So you can learn more about randomness by clicking on this tutorial, and it will take you to the tutorial. So let's go to earn. Look at that. It takes us to the earn reference file. And then if we press the open help, look at that. We got the earn help file here. So that is the help and reference file. It is very, very useful for building patches and yeah, remembering what an object does. You'll be using it a lot. So one way of doing it is holding Option on your keyboard and clicking. Another way is to right-click and then look at right up there. You got open random help or open random reference, so you could do those. And then the third way is if you go to the little wheel here on the left side, you can go to object, then go to object help or object reference. And that's a third way of opening the help or the reference for each thing. Cool, so let's move on to some objects. First thing, if you notice on the bottom of the screen, we have this show key commands. And this gives us our list of hotkeys for what we can use. So we've already covered N for create new object, and then M for create new message box, and P for show object explorer. We're going to cover B for button, C for comment, F for float number box, I for number box, and Y is I number box. We'll talk about that. And then T for toggle. So let's get started. First things first, button object. So if you type button, you'll create one of these buttons. Or if you just press B, you will also create a button. So wherever your mouse is hovering, that's where you'll create a button. Now if you go to the bottom right corner, you can resize it so we can make this button ginormous, just for fun. And if you'll notice in our random object, when we went to the help file, this is actually the button object right there. So what it does is, remember when we were working with the random object, we are sending it a message of bang, and then we are getting random number between 0 and 9. What the button object does is, let's call this terrestrial. So if you attach the button object to your print object and then open the max window, the button literally just outputs bang. So it's the same thing as if you're sending a message that says bang. Buttons always output bangs. That's what they do. So you can connect this to the random number and then look at it is acting as if it's receiving a bang, because that's what buttons do. So that is part of what the button object does. It outputs bangs. And on top of that, what else it does is when you send it anything into its input, we'll send it dancing. So if you send anything to its input, it will convert that into a bang. So I'm sending dancing into the button. It makes the button, light up, and it outputs it as a bang. So whatever you send, if you want to convert something into a bang, you just send it into the button object, and it will convert it. So that works for numbers too. You just send it a random number, and it converts it to a bang. So that's what the button object does. Now, one final trick that is useful for all of what we've been doing is we've been locking our patch when we use our objects. So in order to click on a message, you need to lock your patch. In order to click on a button, you need to lock your patch. Well, while it's unlocked, if you hold the command key on your keyboard and you click on the object, you'll be able to use the object. So you don't even have to lock your patch anymore. If you don't hold command, then this is what happens. You click and you move around your objects. But if you do hold command, then you get to use the object as if your patch is locked. So you don't even need to lock your patches anymore necessarily. All right, button attributes. And we'll address this stuff in a next video. But button attributes. So if we open the button inspector here, you'll see that we got background color, where you can change the background color. Got foreground color of the button. Button color, you got that. Outline color, and then blink color. So when I click on the object, look at that, it turns yellow. But you can change that to, let's say, red. So you get a lot of attribute manipulation for the way that the buttons look. So moving on from the button, now let's move to the toggle object. So you can get a toggle by typing toggle, or you can get an object or a toggle by pressing T on your keyboard. And again, you can go to the bottom right corner and make it maximum, make it really big for some reason. And then, so what does the toggle object do? The way the Max tutorial described it is, it's like a light switch. When you flick a light switch, on or off, that's it. There's two states. It's either on or off. Either the lights are on or the lights are off, if we're not talking about dimming lights or anything. So that's what a toggle does, is when you lock your patch, it's either off or on. So when you click it, it does that. And so when it's off, when you change it to turn off, it will output a 0. And when you change it to turn on, it will output a 1. So since I changed it on, it outputs a 1. and then when I change it off, it outputs a 0. So a lot of max objects will be, they will function, they will be turned on if you send it a 1, or they will turn off if you send it a 0. So this toggle is very useful for that. So you'll notice if I click on it while while the patcher is locked, or if I hold the command click, then while I click on it, it will change it'll change the state. So if it's off, it will turn on. If it's on, it will turn off. That's if you click on it. Same as if you send it a bang. So if you attach a button to it, then every time you click that button, every time it receives a bang, it will automatically switch to whatever state it's not in. But if you want to be more specific, you always want it to be on or off, you could send it messages like 1, and then I'll just get another one too. So what this does is, let's do tog test. So when you hook up a print to this object, then you'll notice that if I send it a 1, it will turn on, and then it will output 1. And if I send it a 0, it will change back to 0. But even if it's off, if I send it a 0, it will stay off, but it will still output that number. So the data is still being passed through it, and even though it doesn't change. Same with the 1. And you can send it, any number that's not 0 will check mark it to turn on. And then it will send that value through it. So see how I clicked 500? Now it is turned on, and then it output that 500. So look, I could click between 1 and 500, and it's outputting different numbers. You'll see it's going back and forth, but it looks like it's on the whole time. So that's part of the toggle. Some of the attributes similar to the other to the button. You have background color. We can make it light blue. Border color, which is that border around it, and then the check marked color. So we can make it white instead of turning black when you have it selected. And then it has this parameter mode enable, which this is for max for live. So you'll notice it says enables, it says on the clue window down here, enables use of this object with max for live parameters and allows for initial parameter settings in the max environment. And then if you click that, it gets more detailed, and we're not going to cover that right now though. So this is a toggle object. You will be using that a lot. Let's talk about the comment object now. So if you type in comment, then you'll see you get this little thing. You could also press C on your keyboard, and then you get this comment object. And what it does is, I am a comment. It just displays text. So you'll notice how it has no output whatsoever. It has an input, so you can change what is written in there. And we'll talk about that in the next video. But when you lock your patch, look, it completely disappears. The dotted line box surrounding it completely disappears. So this is just for decorative kind of displaying text purposes. So you want to, if you want to explain your patch so that another user can know how it's working, or if you want to keep it organized for yourself so you know what it's doing, then this is something you can use. And if you open the max help, so I held the option key and then clicked on it, you'll notice that almost all of the text around these max help files are comment boxes or comment objects. So if you look right down here, when I scroll over things or when I hover over things, that's a comment, that's a comment, that's a comment, that's a comment. So these are all comments. So it's very useful for displaying text. So let's change some of the attributes. I'm going to create an adder UI. I'm going to attach it to this comment box. And then some of the things is you have this bubble option, where if you send it a 1 for bubble, it will turn it into a bubble. So you see it send it a 1, meaning that it's a check mark right there. So check mark means 1, turning it off means 0. So I am a comment, and now it's a bubbled comment. So you can go to things like arrow side. So what arrow side does is right now the arrow's on the left side. You could change the arrow to be on the right. You could change it to be on the bottom. And then you have bubble arrow point. So right now it's at right in the middle between 0 and 1. So it's right in the middle. And if we change this, click and drag, you can change the direction of where it is. So, and yep. And so then also we have the bubble text margin, where if you click and drag that, you see that the margin around the comment actually increases. Then a final thing is underline, and if you click that, then it just underlines the text that you have in there. So that's the comment object. Let's get the number object. So if you type in number, then you'll get the number object, or you could press I on your keyboard. I for integer. So now this is a critical, very important difference that Max MSP works with. It works with integers and it works with floats. An integer is a whole number. It has no decimal place whatsoever. That's the only difference. A float has a decimal place, allows for decimals. Integers does not allow for decimals. So again, it's whole numbers like you learn in like kindergarten stuff. And this is very important because a lot of objects will only work for data, or will only work with data that is whole numbers. And so if you send it a float that has decimals, it won't take that data, it won't process it. You need to make sure that you send it an integer when it wants an integer. You need to make sure that you send it a float when it wants a float. So the number object, if you go to here, you'll see that it says displays, inputs, and outputs integer numbers. So you, when you lock your patch, if you click on it, you'll see that now it's highlighted. And so now we could type in a number. We could do 400 and then press enter, and it changes it to 400. Or you can press the up arrow or the down arrow, and it will change the number. Or you can click and drag, and it will change the number. And on top of, if you want to change the numbers quickly, then just click and drag. But if you want to be more precise with your changing of numbers, if you hold the shift key while you're dragging, look at how I get to go more carefully between numbers. So otherwise, if I let go of shift, then it moves very quickly. So dragging outputs stream of numbers by default. What does that mean? So if we attach this to a print and we call this Jeremiah, we attach the integer to the print object, and we open our Max window here. When I drag, look at it outputs all the numbers that I'm dragging. So it's going in between all of these numbers. But one thing you'll notice is that if you move quickly, it will jump. It won't output every single number between what you just put up. So like what we just dragged. So it went from 708 to 669 to 573. It doesn't output every single number in between. It's almost like a frame rate where it just captures at a certain speed how many numbers it puts out. So again, if I hold the shift key, you could do it. And you'll notice how it gets to go negative as well. So by default, it will output the stream of numbers when you click and drag it. Cool. So let's talk about some of the attributes. So with the attributes for the number, you have this format option. Right now it's decimal, which just means numbers. It's not, there obviously are no decimal places with the integer, so it just means numbers. Hex is hexadecimal format, so like you think of color, how sometimes colors in like Photoshop you'll be like, or if you're doing web design, it'll be, white is FF. So instead of it being numbers, then it is actual hexadecimals. So it's numbers 0 through 7, I believe, or 0 through 9, and then it converts to letters. So you could change the format to hexadecimal, this roll in octal, binary. You could actually have binary numbers. So when you just click up and drag and stuff, you'll see it's working in binary code, which is pretty cool. And then you got MIDI as well. So if we change it down to, you'll see that you can actually make it so that it's working with MIDI numbers. So if I hold shift, we could go, or with MIDI notes. So it goes in between MIDI. And then you have MIDI C4, so it moves the MIDI number up a little bit. So that's the format. Another thing we have is the triangle. So if you have this draw triangle checked, you'll notice we have the little triangle next to C5. If we click it, we could get rid of that. Try scale. You'll notice that, here, let's make it all bigger. Try scale. If you change the scale, you notice that the triangle will get bigger or smaller. Then we have background color, border color, things that we've seen before. Background, border, and then highlighted background color. Here, well, we also have text color down here. So we can make it white, and then tricolor. So what's the color of this triangle? We'll make that purple. And then you have the highlighted background color. So if you'll notice when I click, it changes the color of the triangle here. And that's the highlighted triangle color. So you see it's yellow. So we can change that to green. So when I click, now it changes that color of the highlighted triangle. And then highlighted background color and highlighted text. Once I click and then start dragging, look at it changes the background to black and it changes the color to white. Well, the color is already white. But we can change the highlighted color to yellow and then change the background color to, blue. So now when we click and drag, look, it changes that color. So that's what the highlighted color does. And let's see what else we got. Text color, tricolor. Can't change. So what is can't change? Can't change means that you can't change. Here, I'm going to change this. I'm going to change this to decimal again. Can't change means that you cannot click and change the number in there. But so what is the difference between can't change and ignore click? Because ignore click means that if you click it, it just won't do anything. Well, if you have this mouse up enabled, then you can make it so that if you have can't change and mouse up, it sends a value when you release your mouse. So if we go to our screen here, if I click it and then let go, look, it outputs the 99. So if you want to have a static value, but then allow people to press it to output a number, then you could select the can't change. But if I were to get rid of can't change and do ignore click, then no matter what, I wouldn't output a number here. So if I clear everything, look at I can't output the number. So that's the difference between can't change and ignore click. And then we have output on click, mouse up, minimum, maximum. So mouse up is another thing that's cool about this is that instead of outputting that stream of data, look at I'm moving up and down and it's not outputting anything, and then I decide 669. We let go and then it only outputs that. So that's useful with this number box. That's what the output on mouse up does. And then send value on mouse click would mean that once you click it, it will output it no matter what. So if you click it, it will output it. And then minimum and maximum, which are very useful. Minimum, it's just the bottom number that it will go down to. We could set it to 50. And then maximum, let's just set it to 150. So now you'll notice that it automatically brings it within that. And now I get to set the range of my number. So it will only go down to 50. It will only go up to 150. Very, very useful. So that's the integer object, or that's the number object, and it works in integers. Now, the same exact object, but with decimals. That is called the float, the flow num, standing for float number box. So if you type in flow num, it displays and outputs a number, and you'll see you got the little decimal point there now. Another way of creating it is if you type in F on your keyboard, and then you have the float. So the difference between integer and float is critical. So again, what it does is it will work with decimal places. So let me make this bigger. And then one thing you'll notice is, so we could click on the side, we could drag it out. The way the float works is if I click on the left side, whatever number value I click on, it will move up and down within that area. But now, say I want to do a tenth of a decimal. If I click on that area in the box, look at that, now I have decimals. And then if I want to move really deep, I could click all the way down here, and now I'm only working within those numbers. So you see that the position you click on the float number affects the increments that you are jumping up and down in. So that's how the float box works, the flow num works. And integer truncates float. What does that mean? It means that if you send a float into an integer box, it will not round the number. It will not, round up or anything like that. It will literally just cut off the decimal. So look at 41. Doesn't matter if I'm at 41.9. It's still 41. And then as soon as I go to 42, it does that. So it cuts off the floats entirely. It does not round it up or anything like that. There's an object you will have to use to round it. So the float has all the same attributes that we talked about in the other as the number box. The only difference is it has this num decimal places here. So if you want to specify, that it only has 2 places, then it will only have 2 places. So you can specify how many decimal places it will have. Maybe you always wanted to have 8. Well, then you got 8 decimal places. Cool. The last object I want to talk about is send and receive. So, actually, let's keep this up here. Send and receive is a way of, it's essentially a patch cord without using patch cords. So if you type send, then you'll see it says, send will transmit given messages to receive objects, which are named by the same argument. It will allow you to send any kind of message between patcher windows or within a window without using patch cords. A send object can be instantiated simply by typing into an object box the short form letter S. So what that means is if we type send and then we have one argument, we need a symbol of some sort. So just like how the print object, we can name it anything. Let's name this Roscoe. All right. And so now any object that we create called receive, and if we name it the same thing as Roscoe, then if we attach anything to the send, it will come out of this object called receive Roscoe. So now if we attach this to our integer, then you'll notice it works just like it should. So it's a way of connecting things without doing patch cords. This is very nice for cleaning up your patch, but it's also nice for, and you'll notice if we drag it out that it actually, the full number was in there. It also is very helpful for, say, if you want this to be sent to multiple things. So then we can, right now what I'm doing is if your patcher's unlocked, if you hold the option key while things are selected and then you click and drag, you duplicate. And so now I could have one object changing the values of all of these different objects just by using multiple receives. Now granted, I could go through and I could just attach this to all these different things, but look at how much neater it will be without patch cords lying all over like spider webbing across your patcher. So another thing is that instead of typing send, though, since this object is so commonly used, you can just type S, and it works the same exact way. You could type S, and instead of typing receive, you could just type R. So this is what I would recommend. Instead of typing out the whole names, you could just do S and R. So that's the send and receive object. So those are the objects I want to talk about today, and I look forward to helping you out in the next video.